What is up, guys? It is John Fig with the Macro Coffee Hour, and I got some crazy stuff to talk about today. So, the market officially has hit 5% today as far as 30-year fix goes. I just want to talk to you guys about the implications. I'm going to be doing a bunch more content about this. I've been looking at the macro market for a while as I'm making investment decisions, so just want to kind of share what I'm learning, and I think it'd be an interesting thing. So, if you guys could do me a favor and leave me a like or a comment, it really helps with the algorithm and YouTube, and then it allows me to be able to share with more people, because really my life mission is to help as many people as possible buy back the most important resource in life, which is time, and that helps me do so. Also, if you guys haven't, smash the like button. I am going to be doing a bunch more content, so if you guys want to see, I'm going to be probably doing 3 pieces per week, so just let me know, tune in, and I'm excited to have you guys here. So one of the things that I want to show you guys without further ado is I want to show you guys a chart on the 30-year fixed and how it's changed over the past little while. And these are just percentages, but then I'm going to take it and break that out into the real world and just show what that looks like for a normal everyday consumer like me and you. So check this out. When I'm looking over here at the 30-year fixed, you guys can see, so if you see right here, we were on 12/14, we were about 3.16%. And so just so you guys know, this is Mortgage News Daily. It shows kind of this Fannie, Freddie, MBA, and then the Mortgage News Daily. And then as you're kind of watching this chart go up, in the course of 90 days, we've gone from 3% to 5%. And that's going to have wide-reaching implications across the board. Do I think it's going to be as big as the housing collapse in 2008? I don't. But do I think that it's going to have some consequences to the market? Absolutely. And I'll break down the numbers and just show you how it works. And one important point that I just wanted to make really quick is that people don't buy houses based on how much that house is worth. They don't say, okay, it's $1 million house. They say, I can afford $4,000 or $6,000 per month, and that's actually how they buy a house. Just like rent, you don't rent based on what the house is worth. You rent based on, is it $2,500? Is it $3,000? And can I afford that monthly rent? So going back to it, I'm going to show you guys what that kind of breaks down to. So if you're looking over here, this is US mortgage calculator. So I just try to use a really simple example. You got $1 million house, you're putting 20% down, you have a 3% interest rate, and you got property taxes 1.25%, home insurance 0.35. These are all kind of standard out of the box numbers. So what you're looking at from here is you got a $4,700 per month payment. And that's where we were at 90 days ago. So just to compare that to the other side, if you take that same $1 million, 20% down, and then you change it to a 5% interest rate with like the exact same functions underneath, you've got a $5,600 payment. So check out what this does. Is if I take that amount and I take this 5627 minus 4706, in 90 days, you're now paying almost $1,000 more per month, which is crazy. And then on top of that, check this out. This is where it gets interesting. So what that means is that 0.195 is it costs 19.5% more to buy the exact same $1 million house 90 days later. And so what that means is the housing prices don't actually have to increase for it to be like the housing market increased. The housing market literally increased by 20% in 90 days. And that's going to have a lot of effect, because you have to think about like what people can afford. And basically how houses track in value is houses are directly proportionate to a function of how much people make. So if people's wages go up by 8.5% in a year, which we saw about that last year, it's actually a pretty reasonable expectation that housing prices would go up by 8.5%. But this is where it gets interesting. So my prediction is that I believe that we could have potentially a 10 to 15% drop in housing prices this year. And the reason is because under normal conditions, the housing market, it generally increases by about 3 to 5%. So it's going with inflation, with GDP, and then inflation is normally sitting at that like 2 to 5% range. And then from there, what you would have is then you would have wages increase by like that 3%. So then housing increases by 3% because they're kind of directly proportionate. So in a 90-day period, when things just click on like that, to where you basically have people all of a sudden, they are now having to pay 20% more. You're watching what's happening right now, which is FOMO. So everyone is saying, I got to get in the market now. It has to happen instantly. Otherwise, guys, I'm out. So over the past 60 days, you watched a stampede of people coming in. But the really unique thing that's happening right now in the market is that people are getting rejected now. So people have pre-qualification letters, and as of this week, we're sitting at 5%. So I locked in a loan, 2 weeks ago for 4.35, and now it's at 5%. So someone's literally going to be paying 10% more in just a 2-week period, and that doesn't not have implications. And it may take a little bit because you're going to have a few people, all cash buyers, that can do this stuff. There's some crazy markets like Miami or San Francisco to where people have cash, they just slap it down and then they buy a house, and that's absurd. But ultimately, as that gets flushed out, you're going to be left with normal people like us. And from there, they're going to have to pay it based on, they've saved up for a while. We need to make a monthly payment, and you have to make enough. And so what I think is ultimately going to happen is houses are up by 20% in their payment, and then maybe people make 8% more because of inflation, but there's still a 12% gap. So if houses stay at their current value, that's like houses increasing an additional 12% over what they should, which either leads to a more dangerous and unhealthy environment, or housing prices will conversely have to come down 10 to 12% in order to get back into like a healthy range where people can buy. There's always anomalies, but you're just seeing a bunch of different markers that I'm looking at. So for instance, you've got the IPO market was wild last year. You had 1,000 IPOs that happened in the United States. When you have stuff like that, you have a bunch of millionaires walking around with cash ready to go. Most of them are unsophisticated investors. So then the first thing they do is like, yo, I'm gonna buy my mansion that I want. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. And that puts a lot of pressure on these major metro areas like the Austins, Miami, New York, San Francisco, all of that stuff. And then, on the other side, you just had interest rates that dropped really far, and that increased housing rates dramatically by 20 or 30% because it basically, housing acts like a bond, to where when you take a loan from 5% to 3%, you can increase the price of the house by 20% and the monthly mortgage payment doesn't change, which is why in 2020 and 2021, you saw housing prices skyrocket because people, it wasn't that they were making more right out of the gate, it was that the monthly payment dropped and it immediately set to an equilibrium to where $2,000 house, a $2,000 per month payment could buy a $500,000 house instead of a $400,000 house. And that's where we got that 25%, even though the monthly payment didn't change at all. So I think it's a really interesting time in the market that we need to think about. And I think that one of the things that's interesting is, if you are an investor, really protecting yourself. So I think that if you're buying and holding for the long term, 10 years, I'm not worried about this at all. I think that this is really just something to work through in the next 1 to 2 years. As we could go into a recession, we may not, but this is the 10-year mortgage will put some pressure on the market. And so then what we're going to want to do is you're either going to want to hold for a little bit until we kind of see how the market flushes out over the next 3 to 6 months, or the other thing is just focusing on protecting yourself by buying, making sure you're buying for the long term, making sure that you're buying at the right price and not getting pushed around as the market converts from a seller's market to a buyer's market. The other thing is also focusing on other ancillary streams of income. So an example is I'm buying a $900,000 house right now, but even though I'm buying a $900,000 house, it has a 2-bed, 1-bath ADU below it. So I can rent that out for $1,500 a month, which is basically like taking $300,000 off the top of the house. And so what that is it's like taking it from a $900,000 house to a $600,000 house. And if I were to Airbnb on top of it when I went out to vacations, I could basically take it down to where I'm basically paying for a $400,000 house. So when the market gets dicey and there are recessions or things like that, you always want to have multiple points of optionality. And that really helps you kind of be more anti-fragile and durable as a person. And I just think it's a really unique time in the market that we all need to stay cognizant of. So if you guys like this content and find it valuable, I think it's a really interesting time in the market. I'm going to be starting to talk a ton more about this stuff, and just leave a comment and let me know what you guys think. Because like I'm going to keep on saying, you're going to hear it over and over again, is I don't care about being right. I care about finding truth. And the more that I can counterbalance opinions with other people that think differently than me, the better the whole kind of ecosystem becomes, and the more we all learn together. So leave a comment, subscribe, like, let me know what you guys think. And I'm really excited to be sharing more with you, and I'll talk to y'all soon. See ya.